Hello and welcome back to Wide Angle. We were getting excited during the interval about some aspects of the transatlantic relationship. Now, talking of the Atlantic relationship, there's another dimension. Donald Rumsfeld and the neocons used the term Old Europe and New Europe. So, in other words, he was in his framework, England and UK and America is not the equation he had in mind. He thought the Eastern European countries, which had been freed recently, that is the new Europe, which is on board with him. They have, in fact, and so he must be very happy that they have all endorsed Jean-Claude Juncker, all of them.
Well, Mr. Rumsfeld belongs to a school of thought which I think will not go down in history as having been particularly insightful or helpful. One remembers what happened in 2003, and it is difficult not to associate it with current disastrous situation in that part of the world, in Iraq in particular. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to his thinkings. What I think is very important in this respect, though, is that we don't have any kind of division of that sort in Europe. It's not possible to find a geographical dividing line with regard to thinking about the future role of the Commission, the future priorities. One does find it's a complex political situation. One does find many different strains of thinking, just as one finds in India. One finds the same kind of richness of diversity in Europe. That's great, that's healthy. We're a democracy, that's the way things should be. But one does not find simplistic dividing lines of the sort that some people who are not so friendly to European project.
My understanding of it, Ambassador, I thought that the idea, look, the whole idea started because Europe did not want a repetition of 1914 and Europe did not want a repetition of 1939. These were the 2 years when they just stumbled and they went headlong into wars which were very, very devastating. The idea was that we should shed some of our individual, it was not total surrender of sovereignty, but we would tone down our nationalisms and somehow learn to live together in a canopy. That seems not to be happening because of these nationalisms. And unless we address the problem, why is the National Front so powerful in France? Why are the skinheads, whatever they call themselves in political terms, why are they so powerful in Britain? In Greece, completely the opposite. You have an ultra-left which is knocking at the doors. Why is this happening?
Well, I think that one has to contextualize. And the context is that over 2/3, closer to 3/4 of the European electorate has strongly supported institutions or political parties that are favorable to the European project. So in a 751-person parliament, we do have the UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party, which wants the United Kingdom out of the European Union, but they represent 24 out of 751. We have the National Front, the French National Front represents 23 out of 751. The vast majority represent mainstream, with different lines of thinking between them, of course, but mainstream political parties.
I'm talking about the corrosion. I'm not talking about dominance. I'm saying that the main blocks are getting corroded, and this tendency seems to be growing. Combe?
You see, we have to look at some of the realities in the EU. And, for example, there was a proposal for the European Constitution. It was proposed in a referendum in 2 countries, and both rejected it. In spite of that, there has been a sort of a patch-up which has been done, and many of the things that were in the European Constitution project are now in what effectively is the ruling law of the EU. And as a result, if you recall a somewhat unseemly incident, when the Parliament sat in its first session a few days ago, They sang the European hymn, which is Beethoven's magnificent Hymn to Joy, and a number of anti-European deputies either turned their backs or refused to stand up. And the legal reason some of them gave is, well, it was never voted, so why should we have a hymn when it has not legally and constitutionally been adopted? They are trying to force down on us some sort of a fictional European national hymn. And that is, I think, where the rub is.
If you call up the European Union here, and I learn to my utter pleasure that you get Beethoven's Ninth and the Ode to Joy being played as the tune. Ambassador, thank you very much on that one. Mr. Vinod Grover, you have been rather quiet on your theme. You have been mulling over Europe and India, and that seems to be the theme that obsesses you. What is it that you would like to say on that?
Firstly, I have always advised all the ambassadors from the European Union who come to represent the European Union in India that they should somehow make the Indian public and Indian intellectuals, students, etc., much more aware of what the European Union stands for. At the moment, nobody knows what who knows what the European Parliament is all about. Or the Human Rights Commission
program going on.
Yeah, I know, but but this is one of the few programs. But even then, how far it will get, or how much interest people will take after this. So you really got to find a way through the universities and through the intellectual communities in India to spread the idea of what is the European Union. India looks frankly at the member states. Relations are with Germany. With France, UK the strongest, Italy maybe after that, and there are some reasons for that. One is Germany is your largest trading partner. EU as a whole is your largest trading partner, but Germany amongst them is your largest trading partner. UK and France are your major defense suppliers. But others really don't count very much in all this. Now, I feel, for instance, there has been a problem. I know it came about when I was there. I don't know whether it still exists, Ambassador. For instance, any talks of terrorism with Europe, which is very important to us. I don't know whether the EU, it didn't exist, the EU intelligence cell. We had to deal with the intelligence of 27 countries.
Ambassador?
Yeah, well, on this particular issue, we do have a counterterrorism dialogue with India, and what happens is that terrorism is precise example of a subject that cannot be dealt with individually. Individual nation states, India, United States, or whoever, and of course the smaller European countries cannot deal with these issues on their own, and so they share. And we have a very high degree of sharing inside the European Union. That's what allows us to have an EU-India dialogue on counterterrorism. But I take Ambassador Grover's point of view. He's quite right. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of public outreach, in terms of explaining the European Union. At the same time, there's a tremendous amount that can be gained from working with what exists. We have with China, for example, a level of interaction that is much, much deeper. And yet, with India, we share this characteristic of being a democracy. We share so much more. We should have so much more than we do have with China. The reality is not that. The reality is that every month or every week even, we have in Brussels a delegation from China looking at issues of urbanization, looking at issues of employment, looking at issues of health, all sorts of different areas of work which we have not yet managed to develop with India. My expectation is that with the new government and with the new priorities that the government has enunciated, we should have plenty to build on in the EU-India relationship.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Combe. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Ambassador Grover. What is happening is this, that from what you said, the time has run out. You see, tomorrow, William Hague is here, the Secretary, the British Foreign Secretary is here. The Chancellor of the Exchequer is here. The Prime Minister is going to be meeting Angela Merkel somewhere. Maybe, I mean, I wish they'd sat together and watched the final, and which Germany may win. So therefore, individual countries are doing a great deal of very enthusiastic and lively trade and communication with India. I do not see European Union as a whole in the picture as much as I see its. I mean, its parts, its component parts are actually dealing with India. And European Union, I do not see as much in profile. That is my observation. And on that note, I'm afraid I have to end. But on another occasion, Ambassador, you will have a long time to explain that one. Thank you very much, and goodbye.